Thanks for staying, Michael. Good start when the boss is walking out. Thank you so much for coming and going, Michael, to Unexpected Passions number 2. Anyone come to the first one? Thank you very much. A bit of brand loyalty there. That's good to see. Thank you to the Wheeler Centre for not axing us after number 1, and we're officially an institution in the Wheeler Centre calendar. 1 month ago I sat here with Kate Langbrook and Adam Zwar and absolutely doubting the idea of having 2 talented people with me and kind of not talking to them about the stuff that they're good at. But Kate and Adam were fantastic, and once again tonight we'll test the wisdom of this decision, but I'm happy to test it because I was thinking, do I really want to talk to David Bridie about being one of this country's best and most respected singer-songwriters, or do I really want to talk to Noni Hazlehurst about being an icon? To me, it makes perfect sense to talk about things that they love and that they do for free, so it makes perfect sense to talk to Dave Bridie about his passion for suburban cricket, and perfect sense to talk to Noni about gardening. So I'll have a chat with Dave Bridie first. Noni will join us, and then of course at the end, if you'd like to, if you've got anything you want to talk about, that's fine as well. So I'll just start it off by welcoming. Please give a big round of applause for singer-songwriter Mr. David Bridie. I feel I can't move with this thing. Anyway, Dave, thank you so much. Guest number 3. What do you think of the concept?
Oh, well, you know, batting at number 3, it's okay, you know, Ian Chappell.
I should ask, though, singer-songwriter, which one do you actually prefer? Why don't you just pick one? What was this? It seems, you know...
I'm not sure I came up with the term, but yeah, it's...
How do you describe yourself?
I think everyone sort of, the real defining moment is when you're at an airport and they has occupation. And so, but I guess they're kind of looking for dodginess, and when you put musician down, you're kind of saying, are they going to search me for drugs? And but yeah, it's musician. Sometimes if I'm a bit kind of highfalutin, I'll say composer.
I just put showman. And...
Shaman.
Yeah, showman. Suburban cricket. Let's get straight into it. I'm talking about things that you're passionate about that people may not have known. I was aware that you played, but I didn't know that, you know, how much of a love it was. When did it start?
It started in I played juniors, so it would have been 1977. But it's actually funny you say this, because a guy I play cricket with, who a wonderful guy named Tony Newman, who does wonderful stuff at the Department of Housing. He's infatuated with statistics, and he managed to find out my statistics from my whole career of playing suburban cricket, and he sent me this email only yesterday.
So let's get this in perspective. What's the career years? What's the career at the moment? How many years?
77. Yeah, that's a long time, isn't it?
All right. Yeah. So, what with the bat? What are you averaging?
Well, it's difficult to see. I played for 2 clubs because my first club folded.
Mercenary.
Well, no. I didn't. It did fold. Which is a story in itself. So these were the statistics from the first club. Because I played my 100th game for Wycliffe. And Wycliffe's a name of it. I played in the Eastern Suburban Churches Association.
The big one. Yeah.
The big one, and it's always a good thing, you know, when you're playing against someone and someone's kind of getting a bit eager and they swear at you, you can come back with a steady on, it's a church comp. We'll maybe get to the vagaries of sledging a bit later. But so I played for Wycliffe, which I think it's a church of sorts. Wycliffe Uniting I think more like Uniting Church than West Ham United or Manchester United. But and before that, I played for St Columbus. I haven't been to either of the churches, but they were the two clubs.
So you just picked them at random, or how did you end up at these cricket clubs?
A mate of mine, San Koo, who was the Malaysian Ian Chappell, who's a best mate of mine at school, he got me down to St Columbus. Yeah. And when St Columbus folded, we merged in the same way that Fitzroy merged with Brisbane. We got taken over by Wycliffe. 4 of us went, including my dad. And so I went over there because it was good to hang out with Dad playing cricket. So.
Somehow we haven't got... Oh, well, let's get back to playing cricket with your dad. I'd need these stats. These stats are important.
Okay.
And you seem to be really taking a long time to get to them.
Okay. Well, it doesn't surprise me that my batting average is about somewhere between 23 and 25 because...
That's fine.
It's good,
yeah.
But I'm hitting the ball really, really well, and then I either get bored, or when I was smoking, I ran out of breath, or I don't have great concentration skills. But the amount of times I would be on 20 and going, yep, no, I'm seeing him really well now, I'm going to make a 50, and then get really cocky and do something stupid. It happens all the time.
So that was for which team was that?
I think for both clubs, my average is probably exactly the same.
And do you bowl as well?
Yes, I'm a better batsman than a bowler, but I was surprised to see that I had 97 wickets for St Columbus. And actually this year, and I just turned 50, I'm pretty proud to say that this has been my best bowling year ever. I've had 17 wickets this year in the one season.
That's interesting because cricket... If you wait long enough, the applause will come. If you've only taken 97 in your 20, 30-year career, you've hit a purple patch. And cricket, much like a lot of sport, seems to be very unforgiving as you get older. And yet, how have you kept fresh, Dave?
You keep dropping down a grade. So I'm playing with the. Actually, I did play mostly with the thirds, but I really like playing with the fourths. It's good.
Dare I ask what form of bowl are you? A spinner or?
I used to be medium fast, probably more medium than fast. I'm kind of tallish, so I can get the ball to kick off a length if I hit the seam right. Now I just come off a few steps, and you know how Shane Warne kind of looks at the batsman like he's done them in, even if he hasn't.
Yeah.
That's about the one thing I have in common with Shane Warne with my bowling.
So there's an undoubted psychological aspect to your bowling.
Oh, you do learn stuff. The older you get, you learn stuff. So you guile. There's a bit of guile in there. Although,
as the pace drops, the guile goes up.
Last year we played in the semi-final against this side that was led by one South African captain with a full-on Afrikaner accent and 10 Sri Lankan guys. So it took out any sledging against him for being a South African there and then. I came in and bowled my effort ball, which we were playing in Ashburton. He hit it over to Burwood, and I just looked at him and I said, "That was an arrogant shot."
Wow, you
classic
really
sledge.
Told him, didn't you?
Next ball I came in, I tried to do this. Tried twice as hard an effort ball, and he hit it twice as far. And all I could think of was, so was that. He killed us, yes.
Yeah. Did you finish the over, or did you just walk off?
I wish I could have walked off, but no, we had a laugh about it.
Are you playing this summer just gone? Did you play?
Yes, I did play, and I actually played more games this year because of it fits around touring. But every year I can't play in the semi-finals because I'm either playing at Womadelaide or at the Port Fairy Festival, and that's always on the long weekend where the semi-final is. So I missed out on the semi-final this year, which is unfortunate, but I did play a fair amount of games this year.
Well, the life of a rock star, Dave. How does it? Obviously, lots of weekend gigs. So how has that played out with cricket being obviously predominantly a Saturday and Sunday game? It's not
No, it tends to be Saturdays except for those finals that are on the Labor Day Monday. But I probably only play 40% of the games every year. But it's I do a lot of work in the studio with film soundtrack stuff, which is pretty sedentary. So I actually really enjoy. I actually really like just standing on an oval and staring at gum trees. It's the one time where I get out in the sun and can just, and it's daggy and C grade and D grade. It's mostly low key. It sometimes gets a little bit excited.
They can be. I can imagine though that one of the things I don't think is that attractive is, for instance, being in the field all day. So that's if you've spent your Saturday fielding at fine leg just in the sun. But you seem to not have had that many days where you thought, wow, that was a massive waste of time.
Oh no! Look, the last 4 years, as I'm getting older, because they're playing more one-day games now, but the two-day game, when the other side belts you all around, after 4 o'clock, you really start to feel it. Your lower back and your legs and.
That's the. Apparently we're competing with is it a pro-Palestinian march? I'll get Sebastian to go out and tell him to keep it down a little, mate. What about playing? You mentioned your father before. Tell us about playing. You obviously you played seasons of cricket with your dad.
Yeah, no, Dad. Dad taught me cricket when I was little, and he had this classic old Bert Oldfield bat, which was this bat. The old bats used to kind of have to cure them with linseed oil, and he had this beautiful bat that was signed by Bert Oldfield, who I think those who. Perhaps two of you may remember, he was one of the batsmen who got hit by Harold Larwood in Bodyline, or you might have seen it on the Channel 9 telly movie about Bodyline. Hugo Weaving did play Douglas Jardine, didn't he? Yeah. And it was great. It was really good. And as Dad was getting older, he kept playing up until the age of 73. And the last few years were kind of funny playing with Dad, because he captained our fifth 11 in their one-day team, and I'd play with him. And obviously with one-day cricket, you're supposed to score really quickly. Dad was like on a Warner Brothers cartoon, you know, when the coyote or any of those characters would do that kind of, they'd start running and the legs would spin around, but they wouldn't get anywhere, and then after about 5 seconds they'd go. Dad was like that, except when he went it was kind of slow. He played the most poetic late cut. He had a really deft late cut. That was his best thing. But he couldn't run. And in one-day cricket, and he opened the batting, and he was actually quite good. They could never get him out. And so there was always this frustration with everybody in the side that we're not scoring enough runs, but respect for the old man. And there was a point where I'd have to give them the nod saying, yes, you can run him out now, after he'd been in for about 10 overs. Like, it's okay. You know, everyone's frustrated going, shit, Ross, you know, come on. You know, it's like, come on, the respect for the old fella. But there's a point going, yep, now. And he didn't mind either. He kind of got it as well, going. He'd make he'd bat for 10 over, or 15 overs and make 7.
Oh, I can't believe you gave him 10 overs. Yeah, but that's you know what a son should do for their father.
Yes.
And when did he retire?
It's 74, about 10 years ago. But now he and Mum are living in this old people's home, which is shocking. It's another story altogether. But he doesn't complain at all. But this is they come down to the cricket. You know, and all the rest of the club, they put the share out, and it's their kind of venture out from this crappy place that they're living in. They love it, and they remember it. So it's good. It's kind of a nice thing.
Let's talk suburban, because there's a beauty about it. Do you know what I mean? I know that everyone looks at the national team and even, you know, other levels, but there is a beauty about driving around on weekends and coming across ovals where there is suburban cricket still played. Sledging?
Oh, yes.
It goes on?
Well, it goes on, and Australians are terrible at it, and it's like, you can see why, if the national team is anything like some of the stuff you hear in... the Salvation Army teams are the worst. But there's shocking stuff that goes on. But it has got better. It has got better. It used to be, when I was a kid, there used to be crappy stuff, a lot of racism stuff, but that doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, people get a bit excited, although the captain of my side has learned, he's quite good at it. His way of sledging is to talk about the dinner he had the night before. He makes wine, so he can also talk about wines, but he's like a cooking show, and it slips. So
you feel it slips?
Yeah, so or in the gully. I feel normally in the gully, but Alistair will have these great conversations and talking about the dal that he ate last night, and it was just so aromatic and everything. And the batsman will get really annoyed with him that he wasn't taking the game seriously, and it was the best sledge possible because. And he would milk it to the end. He'd just ramp it up. He'd just keep going. And then, who would make the best... Of heavy metal guitarists, who would make the best foreign minister? Eddie Van Halen, and he'd just come up with absolute rubbish. But it was, man, it's entertaining, and it did put the batsmen off their game. Better than saying,
Yeah, so it worked as a distraction, which it is supposed to.
I like his
sledging.
take on it.
Originally was, it wasn't supposed to just be insulting. It was supposed to, it's changed. I think.
Wasn't there? I think it was Fred Truman who was playing. He was pretty good. Fred Truman from Yorkshire, who was bowling, and Colin Cowdery was fielding in slips. And as my father actually told me this story, it's probably not even that funny anymore. But it was like the batsman snicked it and went through Colin Cowdery's legs, fielding in slips. And Colin Cowdery said, "Sorry, Fred, I should have kept my legs together." And Fred said, "No, it was their mother that should have kept her legs together." So
wow. That's way back in when?
That would have been the 60s, wouldn't it?
Still controversial?
It is still too. Colin Cowdery, of course, was at the age of 44, came out to play against
Lillian Thompson.
Without
a helmet. Good decision.
Quite pudgy too. Yeah. He did well.
The reasons that you started playing... Are they still constant today as a 50-year-old as opposed to a man in his 20s for the same reasons?
Andrew Castle, who played in My Friendly Chocolate Cake, does lawn bowling and at the Thornbury Bowling Club, and he loves it. He reckons it's really good. But I think cricket's a game that you can actually play until you're older. I did play with your good self in the Community Cup football games, and that was one game a year, and that took me 6 months to recover. But cricket you can play until... there was a guy, Finlay McNabb, at St Columba's, who played until he was 80, and a guy named Neil Newnham as well, was a journalist for the Herald newspaper back in those days, and he had, from a war injury, one leg, he had a cricket boot that had about 4 inches of heel on it. Neil came in off 3 steps. I have actually modelled my bowling on Neil. And he was a lovely old guy, and that was great. Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. They were kind of getting out there, and Neil had guile. He had guile.
Did he?
Yeah, no, he was good, but
a good release from your life as a muso, though. Like you said about being out there, they're very different. Actually, in terms of the lifestyle of... There must have been times when they've overlapped, Dave, when you've been playing a gig the night before, possibly gone out afterwards. I know, that's what you musos do, isn't it? And then had to roll up next day? Does that happen often?
Well, this is a story that may incriminate me really badly, and it's kind of topical this week. But I did, on my last day of university, go out to a humdinger of a party and drank a fair amount of red wine. And also, I have to confess, as surprising as it may be to some of you about musicians, that I did partake in something that maybe is illegal. And I hadn't gone to bed, and it was 42 degrees, one of those cracking Melbourne North wind days. And I went to cricket, and luckily we won the toss and batted, because if we were fielding it would have been terrible. And I went out to bat at fourth drop, and I'm feeling really ordinary, and it's really hot, and I'm thinking, there's no way known I'm going to be able to last here very long. So I just thought, I'm just going to try and smack him and not have to run and hope the ball goes to the boundary. And after a couple of overs, a bit like Ben Cousins in that grand final for the West Coast, I just had the eye for it. I was seeing the ball as big as a basketball, and I made my first century ever. And I felt really guilty when everyone's coming up congratulating me. I was feeling like Ben Johnson. I thought, it's only a matter of time before they... I don't know whether they do blood tests in C3, but... And I did make another 100 about 5 years later. I was so relieved, because I thought I'd been... Wind assisted, I think, was the phrase that comes to mind.
But, so that, the one 5 years later put you at ease. You could actually do it on your own. That's nice.
Yes, luckily. But boy, on that day, I was playing shots I'd never played before in my life.
I don't know why you wouldn't have done it more often. If you a week later, you never thought about, well, how could I not just, as being a superstitious man, do it again?
I've got morals, Sam.
All right, I can understand that. Is there anything else that you'd like? Is there anything else that we've missed that you'd really like to say? Could anyone in this room? Could you encourage them to go and play social cricket? Because there's not a chance that I would do it.
Okay. I like it because it doesn't matter whether you play music or it's a great mix of people, and club sports. There's a little bit to be said for it. I can always see when people say that cricket is the most boring game in the world to watch, and I get that completely. It's probably a bit different if you play it. You can kind of understand it a bit. Although I did go to the Test match this year, and it is pretty boring. You're a long way. Lucky the best thing about Boxing Day is you've got the good foods from Christmas Day that you can take along, but you're kind of going for it every 20 minutes because it's so boring out there going, how about these lamb sandwiches?
It feels like it's got worse, but I wonder if that's just, as you get older, you have this, this romance and this lament about, Viv Richards and Clive Lloyd in the 80s, but I don't... Kids who are growing up now had to say the same thing about Warne and Gilchrist. Isn't it just the same, or is that just
look, it probably is. I think all sports getting a bit commodified and getting a bit. There's such a big media world out there. There's nothing worse than these young, 14-year-old cricketers, because when you're playing the fourths, you're actually playing against old men like yourself or young kids who are 14 who it's only because they haven't gone through adolescence that because you can tell that they're just way better than you'd ever be. But these kids, their whole life is staring at the television, and they look like Michael Clarke, and we play on carpet, but they're marking out their crease and they're chewing gum and they're adjusting their box even though they don't really have testicles at that point, and it's like they've been watching television the whole time, and they look the goods too. They're very kind of sharp and they irritate you, but they end up smacking you around all afternoon too, because they are just so obsessed. They are the young Michael Clarks, and you look at a guy like Michael Clarke who probably would have absolutely no social skills at all outside of cricket, but he is a great cricketer. There's nothing else that he...
Mate, I'd love to disagree with you, but I can't come in and say his press conferences after a game are absolutely brutal. But what are you going to do? They ask him the same question. Hey, time has flown, so let's just thank Mr. David Bridie, everyone. Mate. And now you do the great showbiz thing where you go over to the next seat as I just introduce a star of stage and screen and radio. Of course, it makes complete sense to have her here tonight to talk about gardening. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Noni Hazlehurst.
Good evening.
Noni.
It's like a real Tonight Show. Kissing you and...
Yes, move
cool.
across. Got the pro-Palestinian rally as my sidekick out
That's
there.
right.
They'll be.
Oh, I thought that was my fan club. Damn.
Hey,
I've got a cricket story. Can I tell a cricket
Of course.
story? It's so lovely listening to you because my dad was a cricket tragic and he used to take me to the test when I was a little girl, and it was the one day of the year that he drank, and he'd have a Guinness in a bottle, and my mother would make Cornish pasty for him and stuff. It was so cute. And he used to have the silver paper from his cigarette packet on his nose under his, to stop the sunburn. This is before,
yeah, zinc and
stuff.
cancer.
But the story I wanted to tell was, I can't remember which team it was or when, but it was a really, really ordinary English team that came out here several years ago when the Don was still alive. And they were just appalling. And I heard the Don being interviewed, and the interviewer said, shocking, oh yeah, it's terrible. And how many do you think you would have made against them, Sir Donald? He said, oh, probably about 50. And he said, oh, but Sir Donald, they're just crap. They're really bad. He said, yes, but you've got to remember I'm 80.
Too many more stories.
The Don probably still would have peaked right up until the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really want to thank you. The last time we were here, we met for the first time on this very stage.
It was auspicious.
It was. It was for an event called Unaccustomed as I Am.
And we were.
Yes, we were. where there was 5 or 6 people chosen in the Wisdom by the Wheeler Centre to give a speech, a great speech from the past. And of course, Julian Burnside gave the Gettysburg address, and you were magnificent as were giving Keating's Redfern address. It was great. It was. I'll stop there.
What did you do, Sam? Tell them what you did.
Well, I did Julia Roberts' speech to Hugh Grant in the bookstore in the movie Notting Hill,
with no attempt at characterisation whatsoever. It's kind of spooky.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty sure everyone in the room regretted by the end of it. But you brought it back beautifully with the Redfern speech, which we were speaking backstage. Dave, you made a comment too. Keating there's revisionist history going on about how he delivered it, Noni.
Well, he's like the Labor politicians today. He couldn't sell a heater to an Eskimo. But, I think... look, Keating was so... I'll never forget him in Parliament. I don't know what it was about, but he went... at the opposition. I'd love to see Julia have a go at some of that. That'd be really good.
He did call John Hewson a shiver looking for a spine to run up, which I thought was great.
Our highlight, the DVD highlights of Keating in Parliament would be unbelievable. But Noni,
yes,
why gardening?
Why not gardening? Gardening is a wonderful meditation. It has results. You can grow things that smell nice and taste nice. You can get snake frights and tick bites. I'm rhyming. Look, it started with my mum. My mum, I was pretty much an only child. My brother left home when I was 5. He's 12 years older, and he's the black sheep. He's an historian instead of in show business, but we don't talk about that. And so my mother, being who didn't go out to work when I was young, was very much focused on me and very much cotton-wooled me, whatever you call it. And so, she had these wonderful little things that we did. We used to make tray gardens, and she'd just get a kitchen tray and we'd put dirt, and we'd get a little shallow cup and fill it with water, and that was a little pond, and we'd go around the garden, and it would, I guess, from her point of view, it was a way to fill in an afternoon with a tantrum-prone child. But we'd cut little twigs and little flowers and get plasticine, and we'd make a garden. And it was just beautiful, and it was really creative. It was a lovely thing to do. But I didn't actually have my own garden till I was about mid-20s. And being an actor, I wanted to buy a property, and the only thing I could afford was 2.5 hours out of Sydney in Blackheath in the Blue Mountains. And I bought this beautiful old tiny, sort of about as big as this stage, little cottage backing onto the railway line with every time a train went past, including the coal trains. But it had about a 1/4 acre garden, and I just loved it so much. A bit like you were saying, David, standing watching gum trees. It's just such a rewarding thing to do. And I've always found that I take great solace from nature, and I've tried to make my kids do the same thing. But I remember once I had this boyfriend who was incredibly cerebral and intellectual, and was always trying to sort of argue the point of everything, you know. And we were in Lang Road in Centennial Park, just opposite the gardens there, Centennial Gardens, whatever it's called. And he was going on and on and on and on. I think his uncle was the Age editor or something, Burns. And he was going on and on and on. And there were these two beautiful parrots in a tree just next to him. I said, can you just shut up for a minute? What? I said, just look. What? I'm going, how can you carry on when they're sitting there? Oh, yeah, anyway. But with my kids, I've relentlessly tried to sort of say, look at that, isn't that beautiful, and smell this, and how divine. And they'd go, oh, yeah, right, whatever. But I took them to Queenstown, because it was cheaper than going to Falls Creek, and they both love skiing, and I can't ski, but, you know, that was their big treat. Took them to New Zealand because it was cheaper than Victoria. And we were going up the mountain to drop them off for skiing, and my then 12-year-old said, isn't this scenery magnificent? I went, yes! Ways of seeing. You've got to tell them to look, because they won't look unless you tell them.
How was the time between where you're with your mother in the garden and then the first house? Did you, during those early 20s, did you always think that, oh, no, I really want a garden and this is where I...
No, it didn't really occur to me through school and university. You know, a bit like you, the grass meant something different then, and I think it really wasn't until I had this place of my own, and I realised that, because it was an old established neglected garden, and I just loved bringing it back to life. So I've made a bit of a habit of buying properties with old neglected gardens, and or very low maintenance properties, and rapidly making them high maintenance by overplanting madly. But then I also discovered, you know, vegetable gardens and herb gardens, and I talk to plants, you know, I really do.
What do you say to them?
I say, that's Sam Bang. What a wanker. No, I say, if I want to encourage them, well, I'll go back. I tend to go to, like, Kmart garden shops and Bunnings garden departments and go to the throwing out pile, where they're throwing out these plants that are really looking a bit sick, and they're $1 each and $2 each. And if I think they've got a spark of life, I'll rescue them and take them home and nurse them back to life.
It's like buying greyhounds.
Yes.
It's greyhounds as your pet. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but my question is, how do plants in the care of Bunnings and Mitre 10 and Kmart end up in bad shape? Is that weird?
I think they're just sort of the runts of the litter, probably. You know, they're just going back to the greyhound analogy. But I think sometimes they're just neglected. They're in the corner, or you know, whatever, and they want to make way for a new pile, or they've bloomed,
right?
And they can't. You know, they're not going to keep them till they bloom again in 12 months' time. So. Cyclamen is very good like that, because cyclamen, if you plant out a cyclamen, it will come back. A lot of people get cyclamen in pots. Here I go, more tips than a tin of asparagus. A lot of people get cyclamen in pots and think they're over once they've finished flowering, but no. Plant the bulbs out in a really cold spot, or just keep the pots in a cold spot. They hate heat, and they'll come back next year.
I love it. I love listening to this. I've got a question though. How do you decide between flowers or fruit and vegetable and herbs? How do you make that decision, Noni?
You buy an acre. You don't have to make the choice.
And divide it up? Do you favour one or the other? I ask the hard questions on this panel.
I couldn't make a decision. Because I love flowers and I love growing vegetables, because there's such a sense of achievement when you know, not that anyone else in the family cares, but look at my zucchini. You know? They go, I don't like zucchini. Okay.
Do you do the thing where you serve up the zucchini and go, these are from the garden? Everyone's going, yeah, whatever.
Of course I do. Yeah. Or I'll have more herbs than lettuce in the salad, and they'll go, there goes the family. But I also love flowers. I love fragrant flowers particularly, and my permanent property is in Mount Tamborine in Queensland. I don't know if any of you know it, but the Gold Coast hinterland, and it's got this bright red volcanic soil. You can always tell our cricket teams because their whites are red. stuff just grows while you look at it, because it's rainforest. It's the only rainforest south of Cairns, I think, the only native rainforest. And I took a hold of pot plants from the Blue Mountains up there. How desperate am I, taking pot plants from the Blue Mountains to Queensland? And they got there and they just went, "Oh, thank you," and they just went whack. Just went berserk in the humidity and the water. And I've got begonias that are sort of 20 feet high, and you don't know what that means. Don't try and look excited. He's going, "Oh."
It's a beautiful part of the world.
It is
Sure.
a stunning part of the world.
Yeah,
It's so green, it's painful. And you can grow everything there but mangoes. We've got an avocado tree that's probably bigger than this stage. So guacamole's on the menu a lot.
Don't you start? Do you know what begonias are?
No, I do know what avocados are.
Yeah.
In Papua New Guinea, they call avocados butter.
Oh, there you go.
Which
I
has
use
a
them as
similar
butter.
soil to what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
Everything
right.
grows.
But you get the seasons there, which is good because it's cold in winter. You get cold nights, so it's lovely. I love the seasons.
It is good to have seasons. Noni,
You're struggling,
What a
Sam.
segue.
That's great, Sam.
Good to have seasons.
To
Yeah.
everything, there is a... Yeah.
Oh, what about mistakes and triumphs? That's
Yeah.
in terms of. I'm actually, I have an interest. Without, I don't know what a begonia is. But that's fine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm not interested. Thank you, Dave.
Sure.
No,
Yeah.
I don't.
I think mistakes. Mistakes are things that I do, like going to the local Tambourine Mountain Market, which is twice a month, and because the plants are so cheap, they're all locally grown, and you could literally fill a truck with these plants and drive them down to Sydney and sell them at 3 times the price, and people would still think they were cheap. Gardenias for $7 that are like that. Anyway, so when I first got there, I went to this market and I just went, "Oh my God," and I spent about $200 on all these trees that were, this big, not even having the remotest idea how big they could possibly get, because they were Queensland things that I'd never grown before. And I bought 3 Himalayan magnolias. Luckily, I do have an acre. 3 Himalayan magnolias, which I just thought would be like a magnolia, and they're now 6 years. Himalayan, yeah. That's why you need a man around the house. No, I just bought Himalayan magnolias thinking that was sort of an alpine-y thing, and they're now probably 60 feet high. They're just enormous, and you can literally watch them grow. So overplanting.
Reminds me of a begonia.
That's right.
Begonia you once knew.
Yes.
Begonia. So overplanting is an issue. And certainly with vegetables, that can be the case, because you'll get all enthusiastic and buy a punnet of lettuce, and then you've got 12 lettuces that are already in the same week, which is kind of stupid. But
Right.
There's only so much lettuce you can eat. But no, the triumphs, I think, would be being able to pick a bouquet of flowers from your own garden and being spoilt for choice. That to me is just delightful, to go around my own garden and just have, an armload of flowers that I've grown.
Which I can only imagine will be a similar experience to when you've grown fruit and vegetables and and they've really hit the mark, and you come in, because there's nothing like them. I know that it's a reminder of. I'm not sure what I'm eating.
Real taste,
yes,
for a
exactly.
start.
Of taste. That's the good one.
And self-sufficiency. I mean, it's not that long ago that most people did grow vegetables in their backyards. When I was a kid, nearly every family that we knew through church, they had fruit trees. We had 13 fruit trees when I was a kid. And my parents weren't gardeners really, but you just did. Sure, the choices were limited in the shops. There was only sort of 2 sorts of apples or 1 sort of potatoes, and that was limited. But people grew the most amazing fruit and vegetables, and it's a shame that that's gone, really.
And gardening, Dave?
Well, I've just got a house in Thornbury that's kind of pretty dead in the backyard, and we just went down to Ceres and just spent a whole lot of money on buying all these native plants and have been planting them. I'm actually got no idea whatsoever. My partner's more about this, but it's fantastic. It's kind of it's great brain dead activity. Not brain dead. It's just good to get out there and dig a hole and put the plant in, put more soil and put water. And I hadn't done it for ages, and I had a great day the other day doing all of that, and also watching this kind of quite it's a big sort of northern Melbourne backyard, but in 2 years' time, I know it's just going to be all bushy and kind of and birds everywhere, and it'll smell good in the morning. And even just the day after planting all these, saplings and seedlings, it's like, wow, that looks really cool. So I can get why without having great skills in it.
And pruning is the other thing I love.
Pruning.
I get so cranky when I'm walking the dog and I see all these unpruned roses, and I feel like starting up this little business saying, if you want your roses pruned, call me now, because you can get 2 and 3 flowerings a year out of roses if you know what to do with them, and they're so beautiful, and people just let them go. It drives me crazy.
Do you
rose rage.
Do you ever walk around with the snippers?
No, I don't. I do occasionally if I see something really smelly and beautiful that I'm not growing, I'll occasionally go. Before I had rosemary growing, I was known to sort of stick rosemary in my pockets. Every now and again I'll put on a winter coat that I haven't worn for a while and it was rosemary.
Well, Noni, as a lover of gardens, is it all right to steal?
If they're overhanging the fence, I reckon it's fair game.
Right. That's a legal thing.
I reckon that's fair. If they're not going to prune their stuff, I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, they should be punished.
They should be punished. Definitely.
Herbs versus flowers, though. Herbs, I know that someone in my street, there's just a rosemary bush that is... Is it a bush? Yeah. So just rosemary, they just say, of course.
But rosemary has flowers. A lot of herbs have flowers. Borage, rosemary. Rosemary has a beautiful flower.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sound.
No, I'm going to.
Intimidating.
It's quite communal. They say take as much as you want. We're not going to use this. But with flowers, I would have thought there'd be a difference.
People can guard their flowers quite jealously. Yeah. Look, herbs are beautiful. Most herbs look really lovely when they're growing, and if you can coax them into life. But I grew this. I had this special herb garden built just outside my kitchen window, up on sort of legs at Mount Tambourine, thinking I could just lean through and pick the herbs through the kitchen window. But I hadn't factored in what a short ass I am. So I couldn't do it. So I had to go. It's ridiculous. I did have the image of the sort of...
Not quite like that.
Didn't quite have a no.
I will say that pretty soon we will throw it open to anyone who's got a question for Dave or Noni. So have them ready, and the microphone will come around. I'll just broaden it out a bit, Noni. Of course, we decided on gardening for you.
You decided on gardening.
Yeah,
yes.
I did decide on gardening. You know what? Amazingly, a month ago, when this night went ahead for the first time, and I said this last time, John, our friend, Mr. Saffron, rang me and said, you're doing a show with 2 people, and you're going to talk to them about everything other than the thing that they're good at and are interesting, and that's what I'm doing.
Noni's very good at gardening, and I'm not bad at C-grade cricket, so I think you're kind of wrong.
These are our second best things. But when you gave me a list of things that we could possibly talk about, I picked gardening because I was interested in it, but I didn't know about I didn't know about your Better Homes and Garden show that you.
It's all right.
Yeah, I know.
I don't care.
It's like an admission. But did you do gardening for 5 years on television?
No, I didn't do gardening for 5 years until I wasn't the gardening guru on Better Homes.
Okay,
I was just playing a role called myself, where I, if I was planting things in the garden, I'd do the hostings from the garden.
Right.
But we had a proper gardening guy.
It does take the out of unexpected, though.
It does. It does.
On television.
Well, you could be forgiven for thinking that I was pretending to be passionate about gardening for 10 years on a top rating show that won 5 Logies, but hey. Where were you?
I don't know where
playing cricket.
Ladies and gentlemen, Logie winner, Noni Hazlehurst. We could have chosen other things, though.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
What else did you think about when
Sam said? What did I put on the list? Home birth? Why didn't you pick that, Sam?
I don't know why I didn't pick it. I was wondering whether we'd get 25 minutes out of it.
Stuck on begonias.
He really wanted some tips.
What's with the home birth?
Well, I had 2, and do we really want to go there? Look, I'm really cross about the misrepresentation that's currently in the mainstream media about the dangers of home birth. And I think in general that most home birth mothers are better informed than the average mother who goes to the doctor and says, when can you book me in for an elective caesarean? 1 in 10 elective caesarean babies end up in neonatal intensive care. You're much more likely to get infections in hospitals. I was very fortunate that I had a low-risk pregnancy and I had straightforward deliveries. And it also worries me that young girls are now choosing to miss out on the option of natural birth. I don't care whether you do it, where you do it, wherever you're comfortable, but to deliberately opt not to try to have a natural birth because it's the 21st century and why should you feel pain if you don't have to. It was the most empowering, extraordinary, wonderful thing I have ever done in my life. And I wouldn't have missed it for anything. Not for anything. Traumatised the first one, watching the second one be born. But it was utterly, utterly wonderful. And in retrospect, I'm really glad I had no drugs. I'm really glad I didn't have to get in the car and go to hospital. I'm really, really, really glad.
Other than the first kid having to watch the birth of the second kid, there's like the pros and cons seem to be undoubted.
Well, he didn't have to. He actually got a bit fed up and went to school halfway through. He was 6 and he told them that I'd had the baby and I hadn't. And it was a Steiner school, of course, an old hippie. And they said, what did she have? And he said, they're trying to work it out now.
Well, I'm sorry that we didn't go with home birth.
Yeah, well, there you go, you see.
I've got heaps of questions, but does anyone have any questions that they want to ask? I know there is one. There's actually one lady on the right there who approached me before and said she wanted to specifically speak to Noni.
It doesn't have to be about gardening.
It's next to the woman in the yellow, the beautiful woman in the yellow top.
She's
next
cringing,
to her.
Sam. Yes.
Oh, I didn't approach Sam before. He's just lying. I know him already.
It's a little bit of theatre that sometimes goes on up here, but that's all right. We can
But
pro-Palestinian.
the thing is, actually,
anyway, go.
Do you know what's interesting? Noni, I actually learned English from you because I came to Australia when you were on play school.
Yeah.
I was young, like I wasn't, when I was 5, and. Actually, Sam, you'll find this interesting because Sam always tells me that I speak in a weird way and he always insults me about that kind of thing. And I remember that I actually thought that incy weensy was the same as small and you could just use one word or the other. So I used to always say incy weensy for things, but it was because of you and incy weensy spider. So there you go.
Well, there you go. Well, I've actually
that's not a question. You didn't say, but it wasn't a question. I was never going to ask one. You made it up anyway.
Make Q&A for this night any different to any other night here at the Wheeler Centre?
I've got a Noni on play school story too as well, because I used to work out in Greensborough at this community residential unit with these 5 fantastic boys who were aged 13 to 16, had mild intellectual disabilities, so Down syndrome and cerebral palsy, which isn't an intellectual disability, but that's another topic. And at the time, and rightfully so, it was all about normalisation, that, if you're 15, you do 15-year-old activities. But a couple of the guys had this thing for you on watching Play School, and I loved it because I was getting paid all of $6.93 an hour to be able to sit down and watch Play School with these guys in the morning. But a debate came up in the staff meeting about whether I was encouraging age-inappropriate activity, and I was going, "Come on, it's Noni, it's great, and they were learning stuff, and it was this big debate, but it was
how sweet.
Aaron Stewart was a big fan of yours.
Well, that's nice. But I had a lot of recent migrants say that they learn English, adults, through watching Play School because it's very simple language, which is why it's age appropriate for preschool children.
And it's good that you still use it today. That's good. It's perfect.
And I don't think there's anything odd about calling someone eensy weensy instead of small. I think that's perfectly sweet.
Play School, how long, Noni?
Didn't you watch that either?
No,
24 years, Sam. Where were you?
I watched Play School. I loved Play School. I didn't watch it for 24 years though, Noni.
There's very few programs that I could say that I watched when I was a kid that are still on television now that I'm 50. It's pretty
Well,
it's good.
My kitchen rules is one, so that's a good one. I'm glad that stuck around.
Yes.
But that must have been just a good job, isn't it?
It was the
Noni?
best thing I ever did. I think it taught me more about communicating than anything else I've done. And it made me understand, well, it made me want to be an advocate for preschool children, because as an age group, people who don't have kids tend to just lump all kids together in an amorphous group, you know, but the needs of preschool children are really different, and I don't think we look after them as a community. But it also taught me the secret of effective communication, which is the same with singing as well, and presenting, you know, that you treat the camera like it's one child and it creates an interactive response. You know, because people would say, oh, television doesn't influence people. Well, why do they advertise if it doesn't influence people? So the difference between going, hi, kids, and going, hello, and a child goes, hello, straight back at you.
High five versus play school.
Exactly right, you know, and there's so little that is appropriate for that age group, that is made with love for that age group. So that's why it has iconic status, because it made sense to little children, and not much else that's on television did. It's changed a bit now. I don't think it's quite as magical now. It's all broken up, not taped continuously, so it's all a bit perfect.
Right.
But we used to make mistakes, and they wanted us to keep going because practice makes progress, which was a great relief to me, because I was taught it makes perfect, and I could never quite get there.
Anyone else want to talk? Got anything to ask? It's fine if you don't. I've got plenty of questions. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk into the microphone. Hello.
Hello.
A question I was going to ask was that I really enjoyed listening to both of you talk about things that I have nothing to do with and don't like. So that's amazing.
Yeah. What this time's all about.
Exactly. And so cricket and gardening are both things that there's no overlap with me and them. But the way that you've talked about them makes me interested in both of them. So do you think that for someone who's already an adult with no kind of experience in it, what are some easy ways in to sort of start experiencing suburban cricket or start experiencing gardening? Like, what are some sort of simple ways to start? You've made it sound really magical.
It's a great question. Where to start?
Well, can I make a suggestion about suburban cricket?
Yeah.
On a beautiful day when it's not too hot and you just want something peaceful and pleasant, pack a picnic lunch, grab a couple of friends, sit under a tree and just clap when everyone else claps. You know?
That's how I live my life.
Right. Sometimes when I'm playing out there at this cricket ground, there are some people, you know, some young lovers will come there, or a family will come there, and they'll sit there for a couple of hours, and the kids will go up and play in the playground, and their parents will just sit there and watch the cricket. And I'm going, and at first I was thinking, boy, you must be, you know, this is pretty
hard
bad
up for a Saturday.
But there is something kind of, there's something spatial about it, and it's something, you know, it's a slow-moving game, but it's quite, I think it's quite poetic, but I've been playing it. But, so there's that kind of in there. It's gentle.
It is gentle and it's free.
Yes, it's free. Yeah.
First plant though, Noni, people, if you've inspired people today.
Do you have a garden of any description?
I do, but my dog just digs holes in it.
Right.
I don't dig holes in it as yet.
Okay. Well, if you wanted to grow something, I would section off a little bit that was doggy-proof. I'd also try a bit of aversion therapy with some pepper spray on the door. It's a little pet tip. Or a hose or something, but that's very naughty behaviour and shouldn't be happening. But what plants do you love? Do you love gardenias? Do you love things that smell nice?
I'm a bit like Sam, I don't really
Yeah, well, I hope begonias are good. They're the ones you really want to...
But would you like to grow some herbs or some flowers?
I just
Or
wonder what would be some like bang for your buck in terms of effort.
probably herbs. Probably herbs, I'd say.
What would be most likely to keep you interested and keep you going?
God, interested.
Now it's just upsetting Noni now. That's
Silver beet. No, silver beet's
Silver beet
really
grows
good. That's
really
pretty
quick.
much foolproof, isn't it? And it goes for a long time.
and tastes delicious.
Or just spinach.
Yeah.
No, don't be like that. Silver beet's lovely.
It's it's not a good
No, it's
vegetable, Noni. I'm
beautiful.
sorry. I hate to disagree.
Well, you're not cooking it right.
No.
Now we're going to cooking.
Or at all. Any final ones before we finish? It's fine. I'll just finish with this. You two are, thank you for just being here tonight, and thank you for staying till the end. You're so great and respected and just magnificent at what you do. In terms of what the other one does apply to you, Dave. Any acting in the back catalogue, or presenting, or Noni does so many things. It's actually hard, but I just thought I'd go with acting.
I did the soundtrack for Brand New Day, and they required an extra, and my kids recognised me in the DVD but I'm sitting there next to the most black-skinned Kimberley man, and it was winter in Melbourne, and I got up there, and I have just looked so Aryan. It was like, I'm sure they had to colour grade the film when it's on there, but I'm sitting there playing chess, and I think I even overacted that, so it's not...
Not for you?
Well, no, I do a lot. I've done film soundtracks for 30 years, and I'm all over the craft of it.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of respect for acting, and I can pick what works for me and what I think's and how to use sound and music and texture to work with the emotion of a scene. But it's not my greatest skill. I don't think I haven't done enough of it to.
And Noni, you're a magnificent actress, but and I remember a comment you made on the red carpet of the AFI's one year. I was writing for the AFI's one year, and everyone just went to you, and you just said, "Will someone in this country write some comedy?" You were so annoyed with the industry.
Well, yeah, they'd shown all these clips through the evening, and in every clip I was crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Music, though, any musically inclined at all? As I look at one of the greats of this country, anything?
Yeah, I've always sung, Sam.
I gotta start doing research on the guests.
Yeah, a little research wouldn't go astray,
Wow.
old pal. No, I actually brought out an album in the 80s, in 1991, called Shout and Whisper, which was for kids who'd sort of grown up, or one generation of kids who'd grown up with me on Play School, and one side had kind of party songs like Shout and Do You Want to Dance and Bad Boy and stuff, and the other side was Whisper, which was sort of the lullaby side, which had some soft songs. And
where did you do
that
the
was
record?
fun. ABC, through the ABC, and endless Play School albums. But I've also sung in various plays, and I'm not a musical comedy kind of girl, although my mother would have loved me to be Julie Andrews, but I couldn't.
Mine too.
Yeah. But I couldn't be the sort of... No, she hasn't got yet. But no, the thought of doing the same thing for 12 months, just couldn't do it.
No instrument, though. Am I right there?
I play keyboard.
Okay. Why would I finish on some with accuracy? We, as always, at the Wheeler Centre, they finish on time here. That's what they do. Thank you to everyone who came. I'm sure you want to thank Miss Noni Hazlehurst, Mr. David Bridie. I will quickly mention, because I know Dave's got to go, he's actually on stage in 29 minutes, but Unexpected Passions 1 with Langbrook and Zwar, and tonight's will be available on the website soon, so they are there to hopefully listen to and just spread the word, and yeah, we're doing it once a month, so I think the next one's on late April sometime, but anyway, thank you so much for coming, and once again, thanks very much to Dave Bridie and Noni Hazlehurst.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
Yeah.